The Cowwood Mountain Banjo. I love this banjo. Its tuning is moving around a bit because I'm out in the sun. Shane here with Butte Creek Banjo, and this will be a little bit different video today. I thought to start where it was inspired. I have a Google Photos. I'm not sure if you guys use the same app to manage your photos, but sometimes Google Photos will say a notification will pop up from the application, and it'll say this time 5 years ago, and a photo popped up of me sitting with my Deering Good Time banjo a couple days after I bought it, white frosted head and all, with 3-finger picks on and on my porch, and my wife taking a picture of me. And I thought, wow, it's been 5 years of playing the banjo, and I thought, you know, maybe this would be a good video to myself in the past, and hopefully it'll be helpful to anybody getting started out on the instrument. I'm not sure about what the title of the video is going to be, but it's going to be along the lines of why you should be frailing, aka clawhammer, aka overhand, why you should be playing clawhammer on your banjo. There are more pros than cons, so I guess I'll start out with the cons because it's a bit shorter of a list. Actually, before that, because this video is kind of a ramble, I didn't really prepare anything. Just kind of have an idea in my head and getting it out there. When you're playing an instrument, I'm not a sound engineer, but it's come to my observations that the sound of the instrument will either fit a very wide sound in its profile or a very narrow sound in its profile. And a good way to think of that would be acoustic guitar with a flat pick. If someone's flat picking it, it sounds very wide. It has a lot of body to the sound. Where contemporary banjo, is like three-finger Scruggs style, is very cutting, kind of right down the middle of the melody, and it's very sharp right down the middle on the sound profile. And clawhammer banjo is very wide in its sound because you get the rhythm of the frailing combined with the melody notes, and so you fill a spot that is more often than not filled by a guitarist today. So one of the cons to clawhammer banjo is if you try to kind of just play in like a jam or go to a old time, I say old time loosely because I've yet to find a proper old time group that I've been to that aren't covering 60s pop songs. I digress. But the banjo is very wide. The clawhammer style is very wide in sound. So a guitarist who's flat picking is going to have to adjust and kind of enter into that more lead role, and that's going to require a more technically proficient guitarist. And it's just been in my experience, kind of just around the local fiddlers groups and old time groups, as well as church and whatnot, that most guitarists don't possess that competency on the fly. They'd have to spend a lot of time practicing with you, and they can't just enter into a lead role. I've run across one guy who I was able to sit down and frail, and he just sat down and started wailing out some scales, and it sounded really, really good. But other than that, most guitarists, acoustic guitarists that I've come across, are flat picking. So what that means is they want to fill that very wide sound profile, and they're kind of expecting you to fill that profile of the contemporary banjo, that very cyclical, melodic sound. So that's one of the cons to clawhammer banjos. You're not going to find a lot of folks that are going to be able to sit down with you at a campfire with another instrument unless they're familiar with that style and be able to kind of just ride into it. You'll be equipped to back them up, but they would have to therefore be, you know, in a position to be backed up, playing that lead. So you're going to kind of indirectly ostracize yourself from a lot of other play, which leads me into one of the major pros of clawhammer banjo, especially if you get started earlier than later. You can play rolls and get really good at rolls. You can get really fast, but if you've ever listened to a drummer, exceptional drummer like Danny Carey, if you listen just to drum track, a stem track of any really good drummer, it's really awesome sound. They sound really good. But after about like a minute, you're like, okay, they're really good at the drums, but where's the rest of the sound? And it can be a little leaving a lot. It could be leaving a lot to be desired sonically. So, of course, I'd have a woodpecker in the middle of my video. But, anyways, the 3-finger style at home is going to be very, very, very droll over time. And the clawhammer style will allow you to very early on kind of get into a place where you'll notice people are kind of tapping their foot and bobbing their heads. You know, it's rhythmic. You'll get your toddlers in the house kind of dancing and jiving to your sounds that you're making, even if they're not complicated or complex sounding. It brings to mind dancing. So that's one of the biggest, I think, pros to clawhammer is you're going to find that you're going to play sounds that are pleasant to hear pretty early on. Another pro to the clawhammer styling is conceptually it's essentially 3 parts. And if you've seen other YouTube videos on the tutorial of a clawhammer, once you understand the 3 constituent parts of that technique, the melody note, the rake or the brush, and the pull with the thumb, when you look at tabulature of like bluegrass music or even 2-finger music, you can replace that brush and pull off with just a very basic 2-note kind of roll, I guess. And you could take really any clawhammer music you want and pull it over into 2-finger, or even pull it over into 3-finger. So clawhammer, I think, by my estimation, is a bit easier to get started in. It's got a low skill threshold to enter. It's got a very high skill ceiling, but it's got a low threshold to enter. Where with the 3-finger styling, it's a little bit higher barrier to entry because you really got to develop those neuromotor pathways in your brain to get good at the rolls. But once you get good at the rolls, all that's left to do is get fast. And at the end of the day, you end up kind of just sounding like everybody else. The other pro behind the clawhammer style is it doesn't matter where you go or the venue or the locale, wherever music's being played. I can almost assure you, especially if you're like me, west of the Mississippi, all the way over here in California, you're gonna get a lot of people going. They're gonna be interested. You're gonna find more opportunities to talk about your instrument and the passions behind it for you and what got you into it. But you're gonna find it's more of a conversation starter. Because most people, when they approach you and you're holding the banjo, they're gonna ask you, can you play dueling banjos? Then they're gonna ask you if you know that Steve Martin was a banjoist. And then they're gonna do some mimicking of the film Deliverance. That's kind of like the stereotype of the banjo. And when you're like, yeah, I could play dueling banjos, but then you play it overhand, they're gonna be kind of taken back and real interested in what you're doing, because what it's gonna do is it's gonna make them want to start dancing and start moving. So those are a couple reasons there. You're gonna find it's gonna start more conversations. It's easier to transpose that clawhammer over into 2-finger or into Scruggs 3-finger picking. And then lastly, and the most important, is it's just going to get people dancing. It's going to get you wanting to play more because it sounds good pretty early on. Once you get it down, it's at that point it's just learning the fingerboard, and most of it's above the 7th fret. So it's far more accessible, in my opinion, for the beginner to start playing clawhammer. And then the last point, and I'll finish rambling, is the clawhammer, the overhand, the frailing, kind of leans into a bygone era of music that is distinctly American, part of our history. You can debate all you want in the comments, and you can complain and bitch and moan and about whether I'm right or wrong in that, but I've seen enough and heard enough and read enough to know that there's a very distinct sound, American sound, that comes from that style of play. Not that other cultures don't have something. Every culture has some type of instrument with a skin on it, strings stretched over it, and you know, that has a very distinctive sound. I'm not saying that the banjo is like holds some, you know, I'm not saying because it's like saying the Chinese invented the wheel, but somehow that makes them responsible for the invention of the bicycle. That's not the logic I'm talking about. I'm saying it's a very distinctive sound that you're going to find. There's a lot of rich history and tradition in the American culture that's distinctly American when you enter into that kind of style of play, because there's a lot of music written down with those stylings in consideration. So kind of a long-winded diatribe. I hope I don't asperse anybody, and I'm not aspersing any one particular style of play, but I will tell you, if you're getting into an instrument, I think you ought to be informed, and what you're playing should inspire you to continue to play. So anyways, that's enough rambling for now. It's getting warm out here, and I should probably take this banjo inside. But yeah, Kyle Wood, Coyote Woodworks Mountain Banjo. You should get one if you're on the fence about it. You won't regret it. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, saved rounds, bitches, or gripes, you can throw them down in the comment section, and I may or may not reply to them depending on my occupational tempo. So anyways, that's enough for now. You guys have a good one. Catch you on the next one.